We are live. Welcome, folks. This is Amped Up with Cliff Schechter. As you can tell, I am amped up. Um, I am lucky, as always, to have the Emmy Award-winning former MSNBC CNN host David Schuster here, who is far more talented than I am. And David, you know it's true. Don't even try to. And also a guy who's been in Democratic politics, who has been in social media, who is a digital wizard and a good friend and an awesome guy all around, and hosts the newly incredibly popular out of nowhere, which is something we're going to talk about today, the Find Out podcast. That is Tim Fullerton sitting in one of these corners here. How's it going, Tim?
It's good. It's good. How are you?
I think, on this day before celebrating our independence from one king, that's why I'm wearing my hat. I'm hoping the French maybe will come help us out again, like they did last time. Maybe. Go ahead.
Cliff always gives me the honor of asking sort of the first question for this broadcast, and this may not be of that much interest to our audience, but it's of interest to me. So you had this pretty remarkable career working for Barack Obama, and you've done a lot of marketing stuff. How did you transit? I mean, you also have this. For people who don't know, you have this pretty successful podcast. So tell us the story. How did you transition? How did you go from work with Barack Obama and marketing to being a successful podcaster? It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's all entirely by accident. So most of my career I have been in politics, really on the digital side. I worked on the first Obama presidential. I was 5 years in administration. I worked for the state of New York, and then I actually
tell the truth, Tim. You ran digital for the Department of Interior. You were a big shot. I worked for him. I got him coffee. You did real stuff.
We built a digital program at the Interior Department, which includes National Park Service and things like that, like a lot of.
Which is good because soon we won't have the National Park Service, so it's nice that you did that.
Sorry. Yeah, I know. But anyway, and then I actually, like a lot of times with these things, like politics is a bit of a young person's game. So I went into the private sector, and I went and worked at WeWork, which was kind of like a political campaign, and that it was completely crazy and insane. And then I was there both for this and for that. And after that, I actually decided to start my own marketing thing, and then I got pulled in last year to the White Dudes for Harris campaign to try to get more white men in particular to vote for Kamala Harris. And one of the jobs I had was to find liberal male TikTok creators so that we could start broadcasting out there. And it didn't take me too long to find all of them because there's not that many of us. But it's four of those guys that I worked with on the White Dudes for Harris, and I decided to start a podcast and continue the work, though we've expanded it to men, because clearly we have a problem with men, not just white men. And so we launched the Find Out podcast, and kind of with no fanfare other than the followers we have on our accounts. And it kind of exploded. I mean, we hit number 29 on the iTunes or Apple podcast chart with our first episode. We got signed by WME, and we're closing in on 500,000 downloads in four months now. So it's kind of crazy. But we're really, really happy, and clearly there was an audience for this.
And what do you attribute that? I mean, is it that the content is unique? I mean, it's sort of you're definitely in a pretty unique lane, but I mean, you also have to be a pretty good broadcaster and a good storyteller to put this together.
Yeah, so I think, one, there wasn't really anything like this out there. And because we had done White Dudes for Harris, there was already a bit of a built-in audience that was looking for that next step. Because obviously we didn't have the outcome that we wanted in November, but we did galvanize a lot of men that were excited to finally be sort of in a position where they felt like they could help. This isn't about, and I want to be clear, this isn't about recentering men and having men take back power. We actually want to lift up candidates like Kamala Harris or people of color or LGBTQ. And so we really were tapping into something that I don't think a lot of people had seen before. And then it also helps that the four of them and I all use, TikTok quite a bit. So we've gotten used to being able to talk. And then, like, starting with Interior, I used to host live chats with both Secretary Salazar and Secretary Jewell. So I've kind of gotten a little bit of practice into being the moderator, because I'm the sort of moderator of the show to kind of keep it going. But that's really been what it is. And I think we're really authentic, and people have been really excited about it. And I think we talk about things that a lot of people don't talk about.
It's interesting. My theory was that it was all based on the salt and pepper beard. That there was a sort of a limited number of people that could pull that. Like that's such a cool look. I had it for a little bit, but it went gray so quickly that I don't know. If you want to answer, I'm being an idiot. I'm going to ask you a real. I'm going to actually ask you a real question. But go ahead.
I will pivot and say that I think part of the allure is that I am the oldest at 46 years old, and but we go all the way down to 22. So you get Gen Z, millennials, and Gen X. So we kind of capture the audience that I think is movable at this point. I don't really think many boomers are movable, but I think we kind of cover the rest of the demographic, which I think is helping us as well.
That was a great answer, by the way. And I mean, the real thing I was going to ask you. And the real thing I was going to get at is, first of all, you used the word yourself. I think why you've always been successful at these endeavors, and there are other ones you've been successful at before this, is you are authentic, which is something I enjoy about you, is you actually just say what you think and feel, and it's not always popular and whatever. And I these days, I think that resonates. But I was going to ask you, just because you've done another podcast before, you've done, what sort of brought together this specific podcast with these specific guys? Because the guys for Kamala, were there like 1 million people on that call or something? I mean, I'm exaggerating. A 250,000, 100,000. I don't know. It was a large
210, 220, something like that. Yeah.
So what was it about? I think there's 5 of you. Am I right about that?
Yep.
What about you 5 that made you guys come together for this thing?
So we had stayed in touch through WhatsApp, and actually what we were finding was that our banter back and forth just through text it flowed very naturally. And I think we all kind of had a little bit different perspectives on things. I mean, we've literally got a guy who just graduated college. We've got me who's done 20 years in politics and a little bit of business. And we've got one guy who's literally a Nazi hunter, Chris Goldsmith, who was a former Republican, did a tour in Iraq, and then found the light and moved to the left.
I saw that documentary on him, right? There's one. Is it PBS? I mean, David, whatever it is fascinating because he's a gutsy dude. They've targeted him and threatened him and go ahead.
Oh,
sorry.
His stories are incredible. And I think what he does when we say Nazi hunter, it's not Inglourious Bastards or something like that, but it's literally, going and disrupting Proud Boy events and things like that so that like they don't grab a foothold of wherever they are, make them look silly, things like that. And file reports with the police or the FBI when they find criminal activity, because it probably doesn't shock you, but the police and the FBI are not particularly interested in going to get these guys unless they have actually hard evidence that they have to act. So it's a fascinating group. And so we just kind of were like, no one else is doing this, right? Like we heard all this stuff after November. We need to do more with influencers. We need to do more podcasts. And like you guys are doing this, which is great. And we're doing this, and there's a couple others, but the reality is like, there's not a lot. So we were kind of like, this is necessary.
So you're the Joe Rogan of the left? Is that what you're saying?
So no.
I'm sorry.
I know. Everybody says it. It's funny. We need 1,000 Joe Rogans of the left because we need people talking to men. We need people talking to every demographic, every age group, any affinity group. There needs to be content for them because they need to hear it and they need to see it. And it seems weird to say that men need to be represented because we run the world, right? But in order for people who are independents or right-leaning to move over to the left, they have to see that there are other people like them. It's just human nature. So that is why we are doing this. This is why we have 5 guys and we don't have a female co-host. Though we 1,000% have female guests on. I think our first 2, Katie Fang was one, and we had an influencer on that was another one. So it's really to just attract more men so that they will hear the message and move to our side.
Well, you're next messaging and marketing, and I want to direct you now to the news, of course, and that is that like the Trump administration will push this ridiculous tax and spending bill that will take 17 million people off of healthcare, give tax cuts to the wealthy. What is the best marketing message or the best way to describe it to people who may not be paying attention but are starting to hear about it? How should it be framed for Democrats?
Well, we were calling it the big bullshit bill, to be perfectly honest. I know there's a bunch of versions of that, but this is why we need 1,000 Joe Rogans of the left, right? Because for some audiences, it's that 17 million Americans who are going to lose healthcare. For some Americans, it's the SNAP benefits that people are going to lose. For other people, there are 300,000 members of the military who are food insecure, who are going to be affected by this bill because we don't pay them enough to do the job. We incentivize them to have families, but then we don't give them enough to actually feed them. That's going to hurt. People who live near rural hospitals, 300 of them are going to close. Nursing homes, if you have a family member that lives in a nursing home and you get some sort of assistance to be able to have them in that place or a slightly nicer place than the bottom, that is going to affect you and your family. So it's really like, I think this is where Democrats, and this is where I'll say the truth, like if we've done a terrible job because we don't break the message down into the pieces and make it relevant to the audiences, because we can't, swallowed up by 17, this number 17 million is hard to grasp, right? And I think we have to be able to take the pieces out. Or to the immigrant community, $45 billion for ICE. They will now have more funding in ICE than the Israeli military and the Brazilian military. And that was actually one I just found out this week. It's absolutely bonkers, but we have to split it up into the right and get it to the right demographics, or we're going to continue to have the problems that we've had for 25 years.
And Cliff, that almost sort of fits into how you've described the best way to sort of describe Donald Trump as criminal, cruel, and unconstitutional or incompetent.
I'd say incompetent, but yeah, it's sort of my three almost C's.
But the cruel part particularly feels like it's very big in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say quickly and kick it to Tim again, and I know you know this, Tim, whatever, the importance of narrative. And the reason why I brought up the sort of the three C's kind of thing is because all of those do a great job of encompassing what they're about, right? The criminality, the cruelty, the incompetence really gets to the heart of it. And I always think back to the, what is it? Abortion, acid, and amnesty is what Nixon said about George McGovern, right? I mean, they're so good on their side. And I know we like to be creative and smarter because we are. But the fact of the matter is that we do have to share some messages that will resonate, people will remember. So, when you see all this happening, I'm a big believer in you have to tell individual stories, because 17 million, you want to share that number, but then you can't just say that, because if it's not humanized for people, it's
right.
What was that old terrible number? Like that old line by Stalin, he's like, he's like, one person dying is a tragedy. 1 million is a statistic, right? Like, go with that.
I'll give you an example. So I know somebody, and we were talking about this offline earlier. I know somebody, I grew up in Maine. So Maine is sort of a, kind of a 50-50 state, maybe a 55-45 state. And this guy has stage 4 cancer. He is a year or two older than me. And he basically wrote on Facebook, he said, if this bill passes, I'm not going to live, because I need the Medicaid and I need the SNAP benefits. And if you're going to put work requirements on some of this stuff, he can't work. So there's all of these things. And he is already struggling to get those SNAP benefits and get Medicaid, even though he qualifies and his caseworkers in the state agree that he does. But now we're going to make that even more difficult. So that 47, 48-year-old, with treatment probably stands an okay chance. With no treatment and without these services. And there are millions of Americans that are like that. And both from young to old. And I think this bill, once the effects start being felt, which my understanding is that the healthcare cancellation notices will start in October if this bill passes, we got to start telling those stories right away. And I think it is going to be a really bad scene for Republicans, but we need to get better at getting into the front of this and trying to stop something that's already happened before it happens. And I think that's where we struggle.
Yeah. I've just said, grab it next to it. But the thing I've said is, I think we also need to stop speaking euphemistically. And so, corporate media is the worst at that. We're far better, at least in telling, but I think we just need to say it, which is 17 million Americans losing healthcare. They want millions of Americans to die. They are going to let people die so Elon Musk can get another set of yacht slippers. They are going to let, they're going to let children starve in school, so Peter Thiel can buy himself another cyborg part or whatever the hell it is that he wants to do to extend his life. Like, these are things we need to tell people.
Right. And I think the other thing, and sorry, David, just real quick, we have done this like 5 times before. We did it with Reagan in the 80s, which is when you really started to see income inequality skyrocket. We did it in the early 2000s when Bill Clinton actually left George Bush with a surplus, and the first thing he did was cut taxes for wealthy Americans once, maybe twice, and then we ended up almost in an economic depression 6 years later. So that clearly didn't work. Then Donald Trump did it again in 2017, and we all knew what happened with that. And now we're doing this is even crueler than those because it's even taking more things away from poor and working class families, and it's just a disaster. And it's for people who they can't even spend the money they're going to get. That's the thing. They already have more than they could ever spend. So what is the point of this? And why are you trading off, that cancer victim or that SNAP benefit summer lunch program person so that Peter Thiel and Jeff Bezos, who just spent $50 to $75 million on a wedding, gets a tax cut? It's crazy.
Donald Trump keeps saying, "Oh, the numbers, that's not right." But CBS numbers are not going to be 17 million or 13 million or below this. Cause a new era of economic renaissance until some of these stories actually start being felt by particularly independent voters. Does Donald Trump get political path for the next several months?
I don't think so, because what does the average person get? Like they aren't getting anything. This is the thing that's wild here. Like maybe the upper middle class families get a few $100s extra, but then they're going to spend. They're already estimating that energy costs are going to cost $400 more a year for everybody, because now we're not incentivizing renewable energy projects. We're not expanding the grid, so that because with all of these AI data centers that are coming on that are so energy intense, there's going to be a pull on electricity usage. And so that's going to go up. So like, even if you get a tax credit, you're going to be facing higher grocery prices. You're going to be facing higher energy costs. So I actually don't, because I don't even see people really defending this bill. Like when I do TikTok lives a fair amount and I get a lot of MAGA trolls. I'm not hearing anybody defend this thing because I don't think that they can articulate why it's good. And I think I don't think he's going to see it. Now, we'll see the mainstream media, they talk about this massive win for him, like making this seem like this is such a ginormous achievement when he's got the House and the Senate. But other than that, I don't think he's going to get a bump, because I don't think anyone's going to feel it in a positive way.
Right. I mean, then look, his numbers are terrible right now. It's almost like he causes one tragedy more, what chaos, an extra chaotic event to move on from the last chaotic event. And that one drags him down. It's like Elon Musk fight, bad. Let's move to Iran. Oh, those numbers are bad. Let's move to this ridiculous bill. And the thing is, and this is important, it's not just the cruelty, which clearly is a big part of it, that this has become, it's become a core part of who they are. Is actually enjoying hurting people, which is sick, honestly. I'm not really sure how else to put it. But economically, as you were saying, like on the energy side, on the healthcare side, we always know that preventative medicine saves money, right? All these countries that do this, France, that I think has the most efficient system in the world, a couple of their Western European countries, it's because of that, right? So what's going to happen is people are not going to get their healthcare. They're going to end up in the hospital. We're not going to just let them die, which I'm sure some of these right-wingers would want us to do. And so it's a lot of money is going to end up getting spent. So, it's self-defeating. I don't see, I don't know. It's hard to know what's going to happen, because you've got these Lisa Murkowski types that just are sickeningly disappointed.
Oh.
And how about that? I'll ask you that, which is, do you think there is one, this is a loaded question, but go for it. Do you think there is one decent human being left among elected Republicans anymore? Because she was my last one. So at this point, I don't believe that any exist.
No. Because Susan Collins only voted against this bill because Lisa Murkowski voted for it, and I
think they made a deal, actually, because Susan Collins is up for re-election.
Because Susan Collins is up next year, and Maine is a far more progressive state than Alaska, so like it is a risk. And Susan Collins has done this her entire career, where she claims to be a moderate. But if Sarah Gideon did not do a good job against her 5 years ago, but I want someone to say to her, when were you ever the decisive vote on anything? And the answer is she's not. So like she cuts deals with McConnell and now with Thune. That's like, once you have the votes, then let me vote no, because if I don't keep this seat, the Democrats will take the seat back.
Right.
So that is the deal that they have worked. She was campaigning for Donald Trump. Last year, I didn't vote for Donald Trump. I voted for Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley endorsed Donald Trump. So like it's just all bullshit, this narrative. And I'm hoping the Democrats get wise and run somebody that's actually a good storyteller and can can pin her with this, because it's going to devastate Maine. I mean, she didn't get the carve-outs that Murkowski got, and the rural hospital thing in particular,
Right.
in the second district.
The second district is the largest rural, I think, district in the country, isn't it?
Yep. And now Paul LePage, the former governor, is going to run against Jared Golden, who is a very probably the most conservative Democrat. But I think that this bill is going to torpedo his chances, because it's just going to be devastating up there.
Well, and to Cliff's point, I mean, that raises the whole issue of, I mean, the polling on this bill in 5 different polls was something like anywhere between 19 and like 28 points underwater. So you're talking, 62-38 split, 62 disapprove, 38 approve. Given those numbers, what is it that is causing these Republicans to march in lockstep off the cliff? I mean, is it of being primaried or Donald Trump force coming against them? I mean,
yes. Some, yes. I know that there are Republicans in Congress who are terrified of him coming in and primarying them, which he has done. He did it with Thomas Massie, and Massie ended up winning. But they're afraid, and they don't want to lose their seats, and they're willing to risk the lives of millions of Americans so that they could stay in Congress. And it's so shameful. I mean, I'll give you an example. So I heard that Angus King, the independent senator from Maine, who nobody would call a firebrand in any sense of the imagination, very calm. I met him. He's a super nice guy.
He's so New England, because you remember when I worked up there, he's just classic New England.
And he yelled at after the Senate vote. He yelled at the other side. He was like, "That is the most disgusting vote you guys have ever taken." So, like, if Angus King is angry about this and is yelling at people at 76 or 7 years old, this bill is bad. So I think that this is what billionaires and millionaires, their big donors, have wanted for 30 years. And so they're going to give it to them, and the consequences be damned. Donald Trump theoretically can't run again, so he's out. He doesn't give a shit. And, most of the members in the Senate don't give a shit, because most of the challenging seats aren't up next year. So I think it's a mixture of cowardice and just shamefulness, to be honest.
Yeah, I think most of them also are, sadly, we've gotten to this point where enough people are propagandized that enough of them are in conservative enough states they figure they can overcome this and win. And I think you pointed out Massie held on, but I think the thing was when Liz Cheney couldn't hold on with the Cheney name in Wyoming, right? That's what leads someone like Tom Tillis to be like, I'm not even running again.
He literally is leaving because of this bill. Like, right. He's just like, I'm not giving him too much credit, but it does help us next year that he is retiring. But, they're rather than like stand up and do the morally right thing, they're just leaving.
I mean, go ahead, David.
Lara Trump actually decides that she wants to be the Republican candidate in North Carolina.
Who is this?
Lara Trump.
Oh, God.
Can she sing all of her campaign lines? Because then we're totally set.
I tell you what, I want to see a Lara Trump Roy Cooper battle, because Roy Cooper will eat her alive. And
has he said he's going to run?
He hasn't said it, but like, he took himself out of the VP. So he was on the White Dudes for Harris call last year. This is why I knew some of this, but like he said he took his name out of the running for VP. And I think everyone was kind of like, why is he doing that? But I think it's because they were gearing up and they wanted, and Schumer wanted him.
He can win. Like, he's so good.
Especially with this bill. This bill, and especially with all the lies that they were saying about the hurricane relief, that they Trump blamed the Democrats, and then now it's Trump's in office, no money came, they denied all of their claims. I think it's right I think that one in Maine are our two best bets next year.
I'm interested a little bit in Ernst too, because that line, especially with now the cuts to Medicaid, that line, "we all die," is going to come back to haunt her. I mean, the TV ads I could make with that. So that should be interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just said they've got some really interesting candidates running there too. There's a couple different ones. One is this guy who's never been in politics before, and another one is J.D. Schlatten, who is, I think, a state rep or state senator and run before. So they've got and is a veteran. They've got some good candidates. I mean, I think Iowa's tough, but I think we need to keep an eye on it. And I think if people could give money in that race, they absolutely should do it.
Yeah, and then this year is going to be huge, and I think people don't know yet, so let's tell them. Some people know. I'm sure people watching tend to know a little more than most folks. But I mean, we have 3 U.S. Senate races at this November, right? We've got Ossoff, who's trying to stay in, so we have to protect that one.
Next year, you mean in 26?
I thought that was this year in 25. Are you sure about that?
Yeah, because this is an off year, so it shouldn't be.
I thought it was a special election for some reason, so I could be wrong about that. Okay, but I think we do have a special elections coming up in Ohio and Florida because Rubio and
right
and JD Vance. And again, these are states that have drifted here in Cincinnati and sadly drifted away from us, but they're close enough still that with this bill and everything going on and open races, essentially, even Republicans have appointed people, not people with, who've been there for a while. I think we have a good shot, and I think we need to come out, and especially we haven't heard anything here yet. If Sherrod Brown were to decide to run again, people forget that he overperformed Kamala Harris by 8 points here. He only lost by 3 points in that election. So I think without that at the top of the ticket, he could do it. So, we could really put ourselves in that position, but we need to start now, is what I would say on everything, messaging. So there's your question. How do we start now in terms of messaging, like making sure that we coordinate more? I get it. We're not the Republican Party. We're not bots. We don't want to be like them. We want to think about issues. But we still need to coordinate to message better. And now we have these abilities. I've got, Dave and I and whatever have this large sort of Substack here. You've got this great big podcast. We're getting these independent media forces out there. I'm going to plug in a little bit the Soundcheck Fund that we already put 5 figures into. We're going to fund smaller creators to build that ecosystem. You talked about having 1,000 or whatever Joe Rogans. That's what we want to do. Not just give it a bunch of money to one person to build like an ecosystem, but how do we do it anyhow? How do we start doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing it right now. I mean, I think it's doing stuff like this. And I think the good thing about Substack is that the way it works, obviously, like when I come on live with you, my subscribers come along and vice versa. And I think that there needs to be a loosely coordinated effort between all these people. And I know you guys are like this too. And what we said with the Find Out podcast is that our rule of thumb is number one, impact, revenue second. And most people do it the other way around. But we are in this to win. We see that we have a problem. And so that is why we are jumping in and doing it. And so I think that the more that all of us work together and that like the followers and the viewers that are watching now see that there is a network of people that they can follow at various points of the day and different channels and things like that, that's what's going to do it. And I think we're seeing some of that happening. And I think say to the people watching, like follow the people who are bringing on other people who may be seen as theoretically a competitor, even though I would never even say that word. But like there are some people out there who are in it for themselves. So like if you're seeing people platforming other people, support those people because that's how we grow and that's how we build a network. It's not going to come from the Democratic Party. There's no chance. They are so far behind. And frankly, it wouldn't be authentic if it was that way anyways, which is why we have nobody from DC on this. I'm the closest one and I'm 500 miles away at this point. But it's going to take that, just all of us working together. But we have the numbers on our side, like structurally, like we should be winning. We now need to do the work to make that happen.
Yep. And I'll just say in 2 seconds, David, I'm sorry, I'm just going to be the jerk here, which is to say, we've got this thing, it's going great, but if we can put 5 figures into it and say, we have skin in the game, okay? We're putting our funds into this. I think some other big creators out there are some ones even bigger than us, can do this too. Don't just talk about wanting to create this ecosystem or supporting these creators. Let's do it. And I think we can show people it's worth their investment into what we're doing. That's why we ask for paid subscriptions, because the more money we have, the more we're going to keep putting into this fund. So go ahead, David.
That point, I mean, I look forward to seeing, Terry Moran and Jim Acosta and some of the other folks who have transitioned from corporate media to Substack, taking the next step and inviting smaller folks or people who don't have following the name recognition onto their entire sort of audience to grow. Tim, how worried are you about the 2026 elections in terms of, I mean, not just suppressing Democratic votes, but literally changing districts and making it, I feel like Donald Trump will do anything he can to cheat in 2026. Anything.
Yeah, I am worried about it. I think that is also another reason why creators like us need to grow, because we are the ones that are going to be shining the light on that stuff. I think it depends on the states. Like for example, I feel pretty good about Maine because Janet Mills is in charge of that state and the Secretary of State is a Democrat. So like, I'm not worried about that. But like, Ohio concerns me, to be perfectly honest.
Isn't it a shame? I mean, isn't it pathetic here? We're supposed to be in a Democratic country and we have to game out who's in control of different states.
Yeah, and I'm glad North Carolina has got a Democrat as a governor and as the attorney general. That's hugely important. But
Pennsylvania,
Florida,
Michigan,
Texas,
Wisconsin.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, are like that's good, but it's the other places that really concerns me.
Yeah.
Nebraska, we're going to try to take back Nebraska 1, especially now that Don Bacon has resigned. He's another one that was basically like, I'm out of here, which should be a pickup, but like, I don't know. And so that's why, if you see stuff that looks off, like, please send it to us. Like, we're going to be the ones that are going to, because the mainstream media or corporate media aren't going to do it. They're just not. So that's why, like, we have focused on building this year so that when next year starts, we have a bigger platform to advocate for our candidates, but also to shine a light on things that maybe look wrong and need investigating.
Do you have another question, David? Because I jumped in ahead of you. Yeah, I mean, that is there right away. How do we also bring in, I feel like we need to bring in everybody else to do this, because remember, everybody's an influencer on some level at this point. You have 400 Facebook friends. Guess what? What you say influences them. I think we should talk about, and maybe you have ideas just how to create an initiative around this where everyone, and maybe we even sort of set it up so some people are paying attention to certain things, because again, everything that I would have said, I tell people this, when I saw like years ago, House of Cards, right? And like, what's his face is the vice president, and he or at the time, or maybe he's the president, who knows? He pushes like a reporter on the tracks and she dies. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. That could never happen. It's 10 years, 12 years later, and anything can happen. Okay. I've seen a foreign country help install a president. I have seen things I've never thought I could see before in terms of military in the streets. And, so the thing is that we have to get past all of us, because I think all of us, we're worried that we don't want to sound like Donald Trump and the Republicans who just lie and make up conspiracies. We don't want people ending up in pizza places with guns. But at the same time, like, the truth is almost as bad as any conspiracy you can come up with. I mean, we know what Donald Trump will do because he's done it. We know he'll steal an election if he can. He tried to steal one before when right out in the open.
Right.
And so I think there have to be people who are experts when it comes to the world of cybersecurity. I think we need experts when it comes to the world of sort of just general security around polling places. We need, I mean, we need all of us to be a part of this. And I don't know if there's a way to pull all of that together, but my God, I think we need to.
I think that for people listening, if you are reluctant to post, which I understand, and like some people, this is a contact sport, right? And we're all used to it, but it's a hard thing for certain people. But the people who don't speak up often are the ones that really have a lot of impact. So when you use your voice where you think it's necessary, and then people will pay attention. Sometimes, like for me, if I post on my Facebook, which is all my personal friends from home, they know where I stand. So I'm not really moving anybody on that. But like if somebody like a friend of mine who's never posted says something, that makes a difference. And it's going to take millions of little actions to come up to a big victory. And I think changing one person's mind, if you do that, that is a monster achievement. So everybody can be involved in this. And honestly, to shift the dynamics around this, like, it's going to require that stuff. And that's also why we're doing this, right? Like, you need to see that there are Democrats that look like you. Oh, I can go over there. Like, there are people who are like me and talk like me and sound like me and swear and do all this shit, like all that, whatever. But like, that's what it's going to take. It's a lot of work, and it is really hard, but we have to do it, because otherwise, like, if we don't take back the House next year, and we don't take back the White House in 2028, that to me is really like, that'll be the end of the line as far as like a functioning democracy, which is already teetering on the edge as we speak.
And some of that, a large part to me, has to do with obviously throwing away rights, getting rid of process with these deportation rates. And I mean, the polling suggests that majority of Americans support tightening the border, but a majority also believes that there should be due process for every single person who is swept up. So for both of you, where does the messaging go with that, given that, there are a lot of independent where I live who are like, yeah, this is what I voted for. I'm tired of all the people who speak Spanish running around our neighborhood. And how do you message them?
So I think we're actually seeing a shift with some demographics, and I think with the Latino community in particular, because I think what they thought was, and what they heard was, we're going to get rid of the criminals and the people who came in here the wrong way. That's what they say. And they don't like that. They don't like how it represents their community. But now they're starting to see that their friends and family are also being swept up, because this is not a targeted action or a strategic action. They are rounding up groups of people, wearing masks, throwing them into vans, disappearing people with no due process. And I think the more that people see that, and if this $45 billion for ICE passes, which it sounds like it's going to, we're going to see more and more examples of that. And that's why everybody, well, I was going to bring up my phone, but I'm actually talking at my phone. But like, people with the videos, people with the like showing these things, I think is going to erode. Now, there are certain people who just want to see brown people rounded up, and we should obviously try to flip them, but like that's probably a tougher task. But there's a bunch of people in the middle who just say they thought that the border wasn't secure and that we're being overrun by these dangerous cartels, which of course is not true. And now that they're
seeing, is the caravan gotten here yet, or is the caravan still on the way?
I think its poll numbers need to go a little bit lower.
That's the slowest moving caravan I've ever seen. I mean, damn, man.
Well, and the other thing that kills me about the immigrant thing that I say over and over again is that undocumented workers or immigrants commit crimes at a fourth of the rate of an American citizen. If you are worried about crime, you are worried about American citizens. You are not worried about undocumented. Now, that's not to say that crime committed by undocumented workers shouldn't be prosecuted. Of course it should. But it is not, they are not the problem with crime in this country, which is already at lows that we haven't seen in decades.
Right. Well, but you brought up something really important there, though, which is, again, Lake and Riley comes to mind, or some of these things. They tell stories. They're horrible stories. They're out of context stories, but they tell stories. And that is why we need to tell those stories on our side. We need to, every time there's one of these people, the guy in Idaho, he's a MAGA guy. Do you hear anybody on our side? A few people are saying it, but his parents posed in front of the White House with their MAGA hats.
The MAGA hats.
I mean, every time we should be, and if you build that narrative and say, here's what we want, we want smart security. Well, we don't want stupid security like them. And what is stupid security? It's where anybody can come in across the border because they build some fake wall. It's where a bunch of guys who are fascists throw on masks and come and grab you and end up they either grab people and give them no due process, or they grab the wrong people, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. We don't know who they are. It's un-American. If you again, this is off the top of my head, but I'm saying if you message right and say, well, what's smart security? What's it look like? What it looks like is what Democrats have tried to pass numerous times that Republicans blocked, that one where we got 67 votes and then they blocked it in the House under Boehner, which is, it's very simple. We create a process for people to become citizens. But yes, we make security stronger because a country does have to protect its borders. We make it where we put more money into making sure you cannot just sneak into this country. If you're in this country, however, what we're going to do is you're going to have to go through a path. You don't just get to cut the line. You have to go through a path to become a citizen. And that involves A, B, C, and D, and we should come up with that. Smart security. And instead of stupid security, which is what they have, or I'd call it stupid insecurity.
Well, and you know who did this last, right? Ronald Reagan, the patron saint of the. Well, I guess Donald Trump is now the patron saint, but like the former patron saint, gave amnesty to a few million, if not 10 million.
He did.
And George H.W. Bush had talked about a humane immigration process. Like, this is what you do. Also, if you give people a path to citizenship, they will end up paying more taxes too. Also, and you will bring people out of the shadows. They will get health care. They will do things. They will contribute more to society. It makes sense. Throwing all these people out, all it's going to do is close our restaurants, make our groceries more expensive. Homes will stop being built. All for what? Like some bullshit Republican narrative.
So what do you do? I mean, that's the thing to me, Tim, is it's this straightforward. Again, and people don't have to use, we can come up with other messaging, whatever. But if you're using what I just tossed out, you have smart security versus stupid insecurity, or whatever you want to call it, right? What is smart security? And we have our 3 or 4 points. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to strengthen borders and make sure that it is much harder for anyone to get in. We are going to give people a path to citizenship so they become taxpayers. We're going to require these penalties to be paid, and you aren't going to be able to skip the line. And we're going to come up with your 3 or 4 things you're going to do that is a reasonable, and then tell people things that we're not going to put up a fake wall that people just walk around that doesn't exist. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, look, it's the wall from Spinal Tap that a bunch of, what do we say now? Little people are dancing around. I mean, I'm just saying we are going to create this. And here is their system where more people are coming in, where where they're committing acts of violence and they're attacking our democracy. That's stupid insecurity is what
I think Democrats have bungled the discussion on immigration because I think they're afraid. And I think that if they had said, we are going to put more money on the border, we're going to secure the border, we're also going to go after undocumented immigrants who have committed crimes and prosecute them and remove them if they're violent crimes. But we're also going to do these things. And this is why I think we would be doing a lot better. I mean, I get the attack line that it was like, Joe Biden had a border deal with Congress and Trump killed it. Like, I get going after them for that because there would have been 1,000 or 3,000 more Border Patrol agents on the ground by the time the election come around. But I guess Trump smartly killed it because he won. So I guess that worked for him. But I just don't think that we tell good stories about this and explain to people like they're adults. Just tell them what you're going to do. And we generally are like, we kind of like shy away. We don't really want to say it. It's like, no, like some of this stuff, there are nuggets of this that are accurate. And then there's a whole bunch of this that's complete. Take the little parts and you put your spin on them. I mean, look, I know there's a lot of controversy around him, but like, look at Zoran Mandami is a perfect example of a guy who went from nothing to now he's close to being the New York City mayor because he told people what he was going to do and he stuck with it. Like, that's what he did. Like,
I think part of the challenge, though, at least as I see it in immigration, is, Democrats are, I think, inherently challenged in terms of telling good stories. The Republicans are more sort of natural storytellers, and they get the added benefit of just making all shit up. And so, only talking about the kind of people we have to get out of this country. I was told by a marshal about a guy on a plane who was eating himself. He was a cannibal, and he was eating himself.
Well, we all get it. The plane food is really bad, David. Let's be honest.
That are eating themselves are going to eat us. It is so preposterous, but it grabs people. And it also grabs people when Donald Trump talks about the rapists and the murderers, even though, yes, there's a far fewer percentage of rape population than among our population.
Right.
And everybody knows about Lincoln Riley. How come we don't have memorized the name of that? I think it was that Marine that was tackled by a bunch of ICE agents in California.
That's it, David. We're not doing that. And if we, again, it's even when I say, I don't mean to do it because I just typed it out to folks here, but even when I say something like smart security or whatever the phrase ends up being, right? Whatever your phrase is, we can't sit there and then give people every time all 4 talking points, all whatever. But if you say enough times, slogan, talking points, slogan, talking points, eventually you can just say the slogan, smart security. People will be like, oh, I know what that means. Yeah. And or you can just say a name. Because we've said the name of this Marine, and they'll go, oh, I know what they're talking about. That's what we have to do.
Well, and that's why they used Lincoln Riley, even though her family begged them not to, because they said, we don't want our daughter to be a political pawn. And of course, they didn't give a shit about that. But then everybody on the right says the same thing over and over again. All of Fox News, Newsmax, OAN, and then you've got Tim Pool and you've got Benny Johnson and all of these guys.
Well, Russia's feeding them their stuff anyhow.
$400,000 a month. Which
right. They have to translate it from Russian, but it's pretty much the same thing. Right.
But money well spent in their perspective because it's disrupting things. But that's why we need our part, because we are just, sometimes someone's talking about this issue or that, and these big moments, it's like, no, like the thing with Lincoln Riley was horrific, but it is not endemic of our immigration problem. Like it's just madness, but like we just seemed incapable of punching back on that and say, we get all mishy-mashy and, that was a tragedy. And the second we already go down that road, we're already then basically saying, well, it makes it seem like we don't care about that person. Now we're going over here. We play their game over and over again and never win.
We're on defense always. By the way, people are saying in the comments, the bill has passed. You may have seen that. Only Massey, because he probably didn't think it was cruel enough. And Fitzpatrick, who's like, Pennsylvania's Susan Collins, who plays a moderate on TV, and fools suburban Philadelphians who otherwise vote very Democratic. But once in a while when he there's enough votes, he leaves and doesn't vote for it. So in the end, it seems even Bacon, or unless he just didn't vote, must have voted for it. What is wrong with these fucking people? Honestly, what is wrong with them? Are they soulless? I want to start fucking screaming. Are you inhuman? children will starve. What is it about you that you look at this and you can sort of, you can just sort of look at it as I said before, a statistic and be like, no problem. Like, what is it? I just can't.
Money and power is very corruptible, and that's the best answer I can get, because I mean, this is maybe why we're on this side. I could not live with myself. I could not do it. But there are lots of shameless people. I mean, look at the people that Trump has in this administration. Look at how much worse they are than the first administration, and that one was a joke. I mean, Pete Hegseth, like, these are the people that he's getting. Like, and I joke that he got the weekend anchor of Fox and Friends. He couldn't get one of the weekday guys. Like,
I know.
at running defense.
What was Doocy or Douchey or whatever his name up to?
Like,
sorry.
Alan is not interested in being CIA director for national reasons that have to do with his own intelligence. Here's the.
Hey, David, you're coming in and out a little bit, just so you know. I don't know if that's fixable or not, but we're catching your every third or fourth word, so I think we can figure it out. But
even for Republicans who only care about money, right? Even for them, I think this is a terrible bill because it explodes the deficit, the national debt. It increases the chances of the dollar plummeting further, of foreign countries getting rid of their U.S.-backed securities. I mean, the United States, as a paragon of financial virtue, of being the safest investment in the world, is going away.
Yeah. Well, and we saw, I know there were some differing numbers, but the ADP numbers that came out yesterday that show job losses for the first time in four years or something like that. I know that the DOJ, Department of Labor, 47 gained, but like, there's no doubt that the economy is softening, and we're just about to take trillions of dollars out of the system. Like, at a time that we need it the most. All these people are going to lose health insurance, which means they're going to have to pay for that rather than groceries,
going and buying,
or whatever. Like, we've seen China hasn't bought oil from us in, I think it's 3 or 4 months for the first time. They've moved on to other people. We're not going to be able to sell that.
The EU is moving away from us on all sorts of products.
We are, I mean, we are heading towards a potential catastrophe here, and it's almost like they're doing it on purpose. And maybe that is the point, but so many people are going to suffer, and a lot of and like, actually, their base, like, not the rich people tax base, but the the MAGA base are the ones that are actually going to be hurt the most,
disproportionately on Medicaid, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
there are certain things in, like, I think the SALT deduction thing in New York, that's in there. That's going to actually help a lot of New York people. You own a mortgage, all of a sudden your mortgage deduction goes from $10,000 to $40,000 in this bill. Like that, there are liberals that are going to get more out of this than the MAGA base, because they don't have that stuff. But like, it's just, the bill is just madness. I don't even know who put it together. I'm not sure Trump really knows what's in it, because he was apparently saying earlier today, like, I don't want to touch Medicaid, and they were like, Mr. President.
And then right after that, he said, "My tie red," and I think the speech was over.
Well, and I think we saw it the other day, right, when he was down at in Florida, and he was asked by a reporter about how long do you expect detainees to be here in this facility. Trump went off about, I come back to Florida a lot because this is where my home. I mean, I think we've talked about him losing a step. He's losing more steps, and so I think, to your point, I don't think he has any idea what was in this bill.
No, there's no way he could have. He doesn't understand basic economics. I don't think he ever really did, because I think genuinely he's a pretty stupid person. But I think the dementia that it clearly has set in, that I'm sure Jake Tapper is working on right now, writing about, because he's really obviously a really important guy. I mean, it is. It's definitely harming us. So here's what I want to say. One thing, and then I want to ask a question. And it's going to be, we're going to have to step somewhere here. But first is, I had made the joke before that I was wearing this because, maybe the French could help us again. There's something else pretty big that happened in this country when there was huge income inequality, and there are a couple of oligarchs and kings running everything, and everybody else was starving. And I don't advocate that, as I always am clear to say. I believe in nonviolent, always nonviolent protest. But you're barking up some trees here if you're them, and you're pushing people into some corners. And I mean, it's scary where some folks could end up. So if you're them and you want to shore up support, and this is what I'm going to say, and if you just don't want to talk about this is fine. But I I have so little trust in the decency, the honesty, anything of them. You think it's beyond them to have some kind of false flag to try and up there. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to,
Well,
Tim. But I feel like it
no.
is something we need to discuss because I don't think it's something that I would have believed George W. Bush would have ever done, or George H.W. Bush or Ronald Reagan. But this is a different beast here.
Though Iraq was a false flag, right? I mean, to be perfectly honest.
Fair enough. Somewhere else. Okay, they would do it
Right.
somewhere else. I'm talking about here at home.
Look, I don't know. I mean, he's obviously going to lie about stuff to distract, right? Like a caravan could be coming, or like he does these things, right? Or he makes up this new thing, and then it's always like, I'm going to decide in 2 weeks. Like that's his way of pivoting away from talking about the thing he wants to. We're going to see a lot of that. I don't know. I honestly, I don't know about that. Living in New York City, it's kind of hard to, being in a bit of a bubble. It's hard for me to say. I just think that people need to verify the information they're getting from multiple sources and not just trusting
Good
him.
answer. Yeah.
Cliff, by false flag, you mean false flag to try to increase maybe the authoritarian power Trump will have to, I don't know, suspend the midterm elections, or where you go?
Well, where I'm headed with it is it doesn't even need to be something that would be that big, right? I mean, we all saw V for Vendetta, I think, right? And things like that. I'm not even claiming, and there's always been those stories about Putin blowing up those apartment buildings and blaming it on the Chechens, which I think maybe has been established at this point. I'm not sure. But it wouldn't have to be something that dramatic, right? I mean, if there were, that the way corporate media responds to stuff, the sensationalism, and right-wing media runs with things, couple people get poisoned by something, right? Just a few people are poisoned by something that has been purposely put into our food, Donald Trump claims. And I need to grab emergency powers to make sure that they're not poisoning our food and our water, make sure everything's inspected. We can't let people come anywhere near these places where our food is made or our water. I mean, that's just off the top of my head. But again, the kinds of things he's willing to lie about, do we not believe? And I hate sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but what world are we living in now where we think he wouldn't? Does that make sense? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
I think what is maybe more likely is that something happens. So like they've cut food inspectors, right? They've cut like that. So I could see there being something like that where the oversight was missed. And then he doesn't tell you exactly, he spins a tale about why that happened and we don't get the full information. Because there's going to be a lot of that stuff that's going to be happening. There's going to be a lot of reports of like bad shit happening across the country. Now this bill is passed. Like in the next 6 months, we're going to start seeing stuff and all those firings, like firing those federal employees, like that's not just in a vacuum. Like those people then go on unemployment or like whatever, and then their job, they're not doing it. Some of those were FDA food inspectors. I could see that stuff where now we're telling people to take fluoride out of the water and like all this stuff. Like they're like people's teeth are going to fall off their face eventually. Like there are consequences. I don't know about that, but
I don't expect you to know. And I guess all I was saying is, do you think it's possible? But you don't even. I mean, I'm not trying to put anybody in a bad position. It's just sometimes there are things that we all shy away from, and we've all shied away from them because genuinely in the past they have been insane. So they weren't worth talking about because,
Right.
George W. Bush didn't do 9/11. Okay. I was there that day. I saw the second plane hit with my own eyes. I wish I could forget it, honestly, for the rest of my life. And it wasn't George W. Bush or anybody in the Republican administration. Okay. It happened. We were attacked. What I'm saying is, I never would have believed an American president of either party could do anything like this before, but we've seen what he's willing to do. And I guess I was only asking if you thought it was within the realm of possibility. But that's all.
I'll bite on that and say, I agree. I think it is within the realm of possibilities. And what does it for me, and we did a video we put up on Cliff's Edge a couple of days ago related to this. So remember, the 2008 financial crisis was caused by these horrific mortgage-backed securities, right? The terrible mortgages, and so a bunch of banks would bail out. Well, Donald Trump, a couple of years ago, he gets involved in crypto, which is another like scheme. It's a total scam. And what he has said to the Federal Housing Authority, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you are to count crypto assets when somebody is applying for a mortgage. And so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac was have to bundle all these mortgages together. Now there's crypto that's part of this.
Oh.
More money, of course, because crypto is now by the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Problem is that we increase the financial risk because what happens when crypto, I don't know, drops 20 or 30%?
Every other day, doesn't it?
Which
Like
happens all the
shoots up
time.
and shoots down. I mean,
All these mortgage-backed securities that have crypto in it go kaput, and then we have another financial crisis. And who bails people out? The taxpayers will bail out. I mean,
Right.
well, and we'll only bail out people with like, $500,000 houses and above, probably.
the corruption is so clear and so evident that if a guy is willing to be this corrupt and this greedy, I don't put it past him, Cliff, to engage in some sort of false flag or nefarious operation to try to seize more power.
That's all I was getting at. And I don't like having those thoughts. And I don't like believing that about the leader of my country. I hate it. But I also believe in analyzing the bullet points that are in front of you. Sort of like I've done with some of these things about, clearly right now, there's some deal going on between him and Bibi for his willingness to attack Iran, completely do a 180 on that, piss off part of his base. Now he's getting involved in the domestic politics in Israel and saying Bibi shouldn't be prosecuted. Trump doesn't do anything for nothing. What's on the other end of that? The fact that we knew that Putin would, that is angry at him, something that we analyzed because of stuff that Putin warned him not to attack Iran. He did it anyhow, and suddenly you've got Dmitry Medvedev, who's Putin's little poodle, saying that was an offensive attack by the United States. It was a foreign war, blah blah blah. Basically, purposely refuting Trump's talking points he ran for office about he wouldn't start any more foreign wars. The words were chosen quite purposely. So my point is, we got crazy shit like that happening everywhere now. That you have to look beyond what's right in front of your face and try to connect the dots. And all I'm saying is the cruelty, the stuff when he was in, his speeches and he said, beat the crap out of that guy like we used to. And I wrote a whole piece for our Substack on blueamp.co, everybody, on the fact that Iran, I believe part of it was Bibi, but part of it is he has this bloodlust. He seems to enjoy inflicting pain and seeing people in pain. And so again, I don't know, but the point is that I will not say it's beyond the realm of possibility in the manner in which I would have, again, with every other president, including every other Republican president. I don't know what else to do with that. Let's find something else cool to talk about for 2 minutes until
I got Rob, but I'm going to tee it up for both of you after I'll
You're going to say something messed up and run, aren't you, David? You're going to be like,
I'm going to ask you a question that I won't answer myself because I'm afraid of what my answer would be. But my question for both of you is, we're talking about trying to reclaim Democrats being able to tell better stories and obviously have some success in the midterms and then in 2028. Are you optimistic or are you pessimistic about Democratic chances? And with that,
bye, David. I'm just kidding. Dude, thank you.
So I'll answer it, and then I do have to bounce in a minute. But part of it, yeah, I think actually we could probably fall backwards into getting the House back next year, just because we only need 5-6 seats, something like that. And I think the history shows us that the pendulum swings back and forth. But in order for us to get up to that 30-40 seat majority, which I think we really need, we have to get a lot better at this than we are right now. I do think that there are efforts underway to coordinate a little bit better. And I think people like us are like getting big enough that we're having an impact. So that's going to help. So we may help them get across the finish line, whether they get their act together or not. At the Senate, I'm more pessimistic about that just because the math is really hard. I do think that we'll gain 1 or 2 seats, but I think we would need 4. And it's just hard to see where those come from, to be honest.
Optimistic or pessimistic, Cliff?
I'm optimistic if we can by crowdsourcing and other ways ensure that the elections are close to honest. They're never actually really honest because they always suppress votes in states like Ohio and we don't get the, but if they're anything close to honest, I'm optimistic because it's like in the last midterm, Trump won't be on the ballot. His numbers are absolutely in the crapper. He's done even worse things to his own people. His numbers have fallen among whites without a college degree, which is enormous, which and we are motivated to turn out. So where I'll slightly disagree with Tim is I think out of those Florida and Ohio seats, a normal election, Trump at the top of the ticket, Trump semi-popular, we can't win. I think we have a great shot at both of them, and that will predict, because if we can win those, then I think next year we absolutely can pick up North Carolina or whatever and have enough to take the Senate. And I'm sure, again, if it's anything close to an honest election, I am sure that we're taking the House. I think we probably take it by 10 to 15 seats at least. I would hope it's more like 40, as Tim's saying, or 120. But I think we do take that. Yes.
I am generally pessimistic, but listening to you, Cliff Schechter, and to you, Tim Fullerton, I am more optimistic now. So we need your voices to be even.
We are here for you, David.
Yes, we're not going anywhere.
Guys, I appreciate it. Good to be on with you guys.
Thank you for being here,
You
David.
too.
All right.
Okay.
I think take care, David. Emmy Award winner. I don't know how he agreed to contribute to this show with me, but we all win some and then maybe win a few more. All right, Tim, I think you've got to go too.
I do.
Plug anything you want to right here, right now.
All right. So I am the co-host of something called the Find Out podcast. And we actually dropped an episode today with an author named Jason Persian, who was the Cracked managing editor for a while. And he's got some books. He's actually one of his books turned into a movie. We talked about how we move men to the left. And the thing is, he was a Republican and two of my co-hosts were Republicans. So we have 3 former Republicans that are now Democrats. So if you go over to Find Out Podcast, which is on Substack, findoutpodcast.substack.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts, you can check it out and let me know what you think.
I'll just say quickly, if you like this stuff, if you find politics interesting, this is all serious, authentic here. There's no way you can't find that fascinating. I'm going to have to listen because again, men have been white men, you sons of bitches, have bedeviled us. And I find this, it's men overall, but white men in particular, I find this interesting. So thank you for that, Tim. You can catch Tim Fullerton. You can find him here also on Substack. We are at blueamp.co, as I said. We've got the Soundcheck Fund. Go apply. We want to give you a grant. We want to support creators. Please give us, paid subscriptions. That's how we're going to help pay for this. Soon we'll have a donate button, and you can do that too. Guys, thank you for watching this edition. We'll be off next week. Because I am going on vacation, but we will be back in 2 weeks. So be well, have a happy 4th, and let's dedicate the 4th to a Bill Pullman-like speech from Independence Day to take back what's ours, which is America. How about that?
All right.
Take care.
Sounds good to me. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks for being here, pal. Bye. Hey, I'm still here with you guys. Let me shut this off. Thank you for being here. I hope you all have a happy 4th. And it's the end button. How crazy. Seriously, happy 4th of July. As the sun sets slowly in the west, my friends, I bid you a fond farewell.